Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to New Zealand once again for the first time in what feels like a good little while. Now we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel once before, and the last review and thus far only review I've done involving these guys came back in about April, if I'm not mistaken, and I have to say I was quite impressed with that beer and especially with the quality of it as well, and these guys seem to be getting a lot of plaudits at the moment. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a similar style to that last one, so it's a style that I know they can do pretty well, and this beer was actually recommended to me by someone here in Hong Kong that really knows their stuff actually, and he told me this one was one that he really enjoyed. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head down to New Zealand. We are going to go to the capital city of Wellington, and we're going to go out to the east of the city to Miramar, and that means we're going to have a look at another beer from Double Vision Brewery, or Double Vision Brewing I think we should say. But yeah, this particular beer is called Naughty Juice. It comes in at 8.9% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is another one that I picked up at Craftissimo over in Chung Wan on Hong Kong Island, and it was Akio who recommended this one to me, and he's a lovely dude actually, so he really knows his stuff, and he always has some good things over there for me to take a look at. So definitely worth visiting Craftissimo if you find yourself here in Hong Kong. It's a nice place to go and get a couple of cans and a couple of bottles and things, and then even sit for a beer, chat to Akio a little bit, and enjoy the evening. It's nice. So check it out. I'll put the link to their Facebook page in the video description below. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Double Vision Brewing so far, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the New Zealand playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to fairly regular at the moment because we are getting some really interesting Kiwi stuff up here in Hong Kong, but hopefully I can get down there again at some point soon and go and see what's there, because there's a lot of new breweries since I was there in 2015. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Double Vision Brewing Company, or Double Vision Brewing. I'm not sure whether they are Double Vision Brewing Company or Double Vision Brewing. I think it just says Double Vision. No, it is Double Vision Brewing Company on the side there. There we go. But yeah, so Double Vision Brewing Company are based in Wellington, the capital city of New Zealand, and the company was founded back in 2016 by Mario Lance, Harry Henriksen, Warren Drahota, and Evan Flonty. So Warren has a background in graphic design, while both Harry and Evan worked extensively with product design, and apparently the four friends met while working for a company called Phil and Ted's, which designed baby gear, and all of these guys are from New Zealand except Warren, who's from Fort Collins in Colorado, and as some of you might know, that's a pretty damn good beer city. But Mario is the beer geek of the company, and he homebrewed in his garage, and the guys would just hang out while brewing the beer and barbecue together as well. So the company started out initially as a part-time venture, and then they gypsy contract brewed, whatever you want to call it, at different places, and this included up in Te Aro and at North End before deciding to make the brewery their full-time focus in mid-2019. So the brewery can be found in the Miramar area out to the east of Wellington City, and they've gradually grown this facility over the years. But when they were ready to expand, they found themselves landlocked by other tenants, but they found a suitable property across the way, and so they decided to rent that one. And to make this work, they had to construct an underground beer pipe, which cost more than expected due to the need for like food-safe welding, which they hadn't really researched at the time, and it's quite interesting if you go and read about that, so definitely do it. But they've got an on-site tap room there now, which has 17 taps, and this is open Wednesday to Sunday every week. But if you actually look at the the Google Earth pictures of this place, you can see the trench between the two properties where they've actually dug the beer pipe. So that's quite funny actually when you look this brewery up. But as of July 2024, they've produced 165 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they do a variety of different styles actually. I've seen different kinds of IPAs, Brut, I think there was a black IPA as well if I'm not mistaken. They've done triples, doubles, and there were a few sours and things like that too available from these guys if I remember correctly. So yeah, I'll definitely be trying more styles from these guys as we go forward. I'm sure there'll beers, some other beers from these guys will arrive in Hong Kong again quite soon. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Double Vision Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one. Obviously you've got the naughty bunny on there dressed up in all these bondage and things like that, obviously into a little bit of S&M and things. But yeah, plain black top on the can there. There you can see the Double Vision Brewing Company symbol there. Kind of looks a little bit like a ram's head, like a ram with very big horns rather. So you can see the nose down here and the big horns. There's one of the Nordic breweries has something like that as well. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one, as I say. We know the hops in this one are Simcoe, Amarillo and Mosaic, so all three of these are quite classic American hops. Simcoe's about 12% alpha acid, and a hazy IPA is going to give you a lot of passion fruit. Amarillo's a big oily orange hop, about 12% alpha acid as well, one of my favourites back in the day. And then Mosaic is a little bit newer than the other two, 14% alpha acid, a little bit of earthy character in its green component, and that big juicy tangerine note. But yeah, all three are classic American hops these days. But like we said, this one comes in at 8.9% ABV, and it's a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want IPA, but it's getting toward the heavier end of the double part of the spectrum, I would say. I think when you go to 10, that's when you get triple. So 9% with this one. This is a wee bit heavier than a number of the other ones I've had in recent times. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. I've been looking forward to this one since Akil recommended this to me. So yeah, let me just see, maybe we'll sugar it up a wee bit because it doesn't look all that hazy at the moment. Maybe it's sedimented a little bit, but yeah, there you go. It looks quite nice. So that's that. There we are. So yeah, this beer looks pretty nice actually. Before the head disappears, we can say that it's poured with just over a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head almost. If you look at that, it does have a little bit of a kind of fawn coloured tinge to it, kind of creamy coloured head there. So you can see medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, and then the head does get a little bit kind of more soapy and bumpy the further up that you go. But yeah, in the colour of this beer is quite nice actually. It's got a lovely sort of, would I say maybe medium amber colour to it? Yeah, medium amber colour this one for me, which is interesting. So that tells me this beer's maybe going to have a little bit more sweetness to it actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But yeah, you don't really have to care about adjuncts and barrels and things like that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, I'm quite impressed with the colour of this one. It's been a wee while since I've seen a hazy IPA quite like this one. But yeah, the level of haze in this one is kind of about what you'd expect. It's certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest and most opaque of New England IPAs that I've come across, or hazy IPAs. And it is certainly one of the darker coloured ones actually, so that should make it quite interesting. There are one or two little bits of sediment in this one. I think I've had this beer in the fridge maybe 4 weeks or something like that. Ended up, I think it just got pushed to the back a little bit, unfortunately. But yeah, has been in the fridge a little bit, so nice to finally get this one out and get it tried. So yeah, I don't know if we can really say too much else about the appearance of this one. As I say, the haze isn't the soupiest and gloopiest that I've come across, but remember the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. So yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance now. Let's go on and have a little look at the aroma, and I have to say I'm very, very curious about this, and I think this will be right up my street because it's got those more orangey leaning hops in it, and I love orangey leaning IPAs. So let's see. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. I will say straight away that is pretty nice. Yeah, aroma wise, this beer is pretty damn good. Yeah, quite a sweet New England IPA, as I suspected it would be, I will say that. So, for me, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to these hazy IPAs, especially when you're talking about the malt base and things. You've got the kind of farmhousey, yeasty character, the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those two can be a bit more prominent in American brewed New Englands, but then you've got the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. So you'll find elements of all of these quite often. It's just a case of which one or two are most prominent. But with this one, I definitely say this beer, it has quite a bit more sweetness to it in the malt base actually. So maybe they're using some, Cara Munich or Crystal-like malts in it. I say those two because, I'm most familiar with American and European malts. The New Zealanders, I think, have a lot of their own malt, and the Australians as well, that I'm not madly familiar with. But yeah, the aroma of this one on the malty side of things is great. So you've got a lovely big green component in this beer as well. It smells like there might be a bit more early edition hopping in this. And then you've got a good bit of oily, fruity character, and the Amarillo's kind of coming out of this one quite a bit too. But yeah, let's break the aroma of this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, the backbone of the beer, you've got this lovely, you have this lovely kind of fresh, white bready bread crust in this one. So, that's the backbone of beer, fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker as you expect, more cracker than anything, but yeah, you can definitely smell that. And on top of that, there's some nice kind of sweet wholemeal brown bready character to this beer. Especially when you sugar it up a little bit, you get more and more of that kind of brown bready note coming out of this beer. But yeah, certainly a good bit of white bread in this one as well. And I would say, yeah, I'm getting a lot of wheatiness out of this beer. I mean, for me, in terms of the New Englands, this one is leaning a bit more toward the wheaty and sweet side of things actually, but there's a good little bit of oat in there as well. I think we're going to find those are the 3 biggest components in this one. So yeah, the way that everything kind of pieces together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. But yeah, as I say, above that kind of sweeter brown bread, you've definitely got a little bit of white bready character coming out of it. Then you can smell that denser wheaty character in the beer. There's definitely a bit of wheaty bitiness toward the back of the nose there, which I do really like as well. But above that, of course, you're starting to get the oaty side of the beer too. And as I've often said, the oaty side of a beer can be quite a good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier the oats taste and smell, the fresher the beer is. The drier they are, the older the beer is. This beer's still got quite a little bit of creaminess to it, but you can smell a wee bit of the dryness kind of creeping in with this one as well. And I think this beer at this stage of drinking is probably about 2 months old, something like that. So yeah, we could have drunk it a wee bit earlier. I had my friend visiting, so I never got the chance to review this one when they were here because we were doing some of the big bottles and stuff. But yeah, with this one, you can smell a little bit of that oaty creaminess and a little bit of dryness in there. Above all of that, though, there's some nice kind of brown sugary characters coming out of the beer. So for me, the brown sugary side of things of this one is quite nice. There's a good little bit of sweet caramel in there. Yeah, there's a good little bit of sweet caramel. There's a little bit of a kind of toasty brown sugar in there as well. And I'm getting little bits of Werther's original, butter candy and butterscotch. These are all things we've seen in this beer style before. But yeah, the malty side of this beer goes together quite well. And the yeasty side of things, you do get a little bit more of a kind of farmhousey, bready character coming out of this one as well. So yeah, I like that. I do like that about this beer. On the hoppy side of things then, so for me, the hoppy side of this beer, the green component of this one's quite nice actually. So as I've said to you before on the channel, there are three kinds of hoppings we should think about when it comes to IPAs. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deep dank aroma and flavour with your green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place in the last half hour of the wort boil, assuming a 90-minute wort boil. Of course, that's kind of common for IPAs, but yeah, that'll give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and it'll give you a very bright green component in your flavour and aroma as well. But then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that gives you all flavour and aroma, and again quite a bright green component in your flavour and aroma. So yeah, with this one, it does smell like it's got a wee touch of dankness and things to it. It does smell like there's a wee bit of a kind of more, it does smell like there's a wee bit more of a kind of, yeah, hoppy dankness to the beer. But yeah, I really like how all of that goes together. I think the way it pieces together is very, very nice. The green component, you get a little bit of earthiness in there, which is going to come from the mosaic. You've got some nice floral aromaticity, but quite a little bit of like wet, freshly cut grass. And that's kind of what the green component is for me for the most part in this one, quite leafy almost as well. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer just to round off our aroma section then. So for me, the aroma of this one on the fruity side, it's obviously very, very orangey, because you've got that big oily zesty orange from the Amarillo in there. You've got a wee bit of the brighter and juicier orange from the mosaic in this one as well. But then yeah, you have some softer, yeah, you've got a little bit of that softer passion fruity note in there as well from the Simcoe. Maybe a wee bit of like mango or something like that as well. So yeah, but the orangey notes most definitely dominate the fruity side of the aroma here. And the Amarillo, I think, is just a little bit more powerful than the Amarillo's just that little bit more powerful than the mosaic, I would say. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really, really quite nice. Right up my street with that slightly sweeter malt base and the big oily orangey notes in it, this one, I have to say. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time for us to taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Naughty Juice, a hazy double IPA at 8.9% ABV from Double Vision Brewing Company in Miramar, Wellington, down in New Zealand. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that is nice. When they say juicy double IPA, they certainly mean it. It's actually got quite a nice, the thing that strikes me about this one first, other than the orange and the kind of sweetness that I was expecting, is the kind of, it's got this nice wet and almost slick and soft mouthfeel to it. That's interesting. That's quite a change of pace from the other New Englands that I've had in recent times. So yeah, it's good stuff. I'm going to say, well done, thumbs up to the Double Vision Brewing for this. They've taken a different approach here, and it's worked pretty damn nicely, I have to say. So yeah, this is what you want after 4,000 beer reviews. You want beers that are going to make you think a little bit and just be slightly different things. So yeah, this is good. Certainly need to try a few more beers from these guys. They've got a Brut IPA that I need to have a look at, and as I say, there was a black one in there as well that I was curious about. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye out for more of these. So, yeah, where to start with this one then? It gives you everything you'd want. You've got a lovely little bit of bready character, of course. You've got that nice green component, soft and juicy. And I feel this beer kind of sweetens up into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, let's break down the flavour and just describe it a little bit more before we... and let's just break it down, describe it a bit more before we finish off the beer. Brain is not working today, guys. It's Sunday, I'm tired. Still need to sleep a bit more. But yeah, middle third of your palate then, the backbone of the beer. You've got that nice kind of fresh wholemeal brown bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer there. You can feel that in there. But as you move further forward on that middle 30 palate, you've got a little touch of woodiness coming out of the beer. And I think the woodiness actually does linger into the aftertaste there. There's a little bit of cracker in this one, but not overly much. I'd say more just kind of fresh brown bready bread crust. And I don't find the malt base in this beer overly grainy. In fact, the malt base in the middle third of your palate's actually quite nice. Yeah. So yeah, the malty side of this beer for me, you've got a little base of like a sweet brown bready character in there, but then above that you start to get a more quite dense white bready note out of the beer. It's interesting because, as I say, the malt base in this beer just feels very, very light to me in comparison with other ones that I've had recently. So I mean, you have that little bit of brown bread in there, then above it there's a bit of white bread, and the white bread is quite light almost. Yeah, so the tasting notes are quite light. No, the tasting notes, sorry, brain is not working, my god. I just saw in this one, it says on the back, scan for tasting notes and story. I never saw that. It's got this little QR code in the back. I should show you that. There we go. Little bit of QR code there. So you can maybe pause that and have a little look on the yourself if you're really interested. Don't want to read their tasting notes. Want to do my own. But yeah, as I say, the thing that's just surprised about this is how light that malt base is. You've got that sweet brown bread in there. You've got a bit of a kind of softer and slightly fluffier and more airy white bread above it. Then you get the more dense, wheaty white bready note out of it. So you can feel that in there. The wheat in this one is quite smooth further forward on the palate, but further back it's got a bit more bitiness. And do remember that generally speaking, sweeter flavours come out further forward, whereas more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate. So yeah, brown bready notes in there, the white bready note, then the smooth wheat, and then above that you start to get some of the oaty character out of this one. So yeah, for me, the wheaty notes on this are very, very smooth, and then above that, to say, you get some of the oaty character. So as you go down the middle line of your tongue, you can taste the oaty, creamy side of the beer, but as you move further out from that, it does show you a little bit of dryness in there. And I am curious whether this beer even has oat in it, because it's quite light in its mouthfeel. Usually oat will thicken up the mouthfeel of these beers quite dramatically. I'm pretty sure there's wheat in this. But as I say, the oat, I'm not 100% convinced on. It does have a little bit of that creamy oaty character to it, but not madly much. So I think this New England IPA is quite barley malt leaning, in all honesty. And remember, one of the key differences between the West Coast IPAs and the New Englands is that the West Coast uses mainly barley malt. Sometimes there's a little touch of wheat or oat in there, but it's not all that common. And then New England IPAs are using barley, wheat and oats in their malt base. But yeah, I think there is a wee bit of oat in this one, but above what I suspect are oaty characters, you can get that nice little bit of straight up sweet caramel that lingers in the middle. That lingers there in the middle of your palate, and then just as you move further out from that, you've got a wee touch of you move out from that, you get a little, I think actually there's a few layers to this. There's a bit of a toasty brown sugary layer, then above that you've got a bit of Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, and then it's straight up sweet caramel in the middle of your palate. So yeah, so above the oaty layer, toasty caramel, Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, and then a straight up sweet caramel, and those kind of form a circle on top of that middle third of your palate there. And there's a wee bit of biscuit comes out of that as well, the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, that's pretty nice in this beer, I have to say. Yeah, so I think that's everything we really need to say about the middle third of the palate in this beer, to be honest with you. So let's go to the back third of the palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get a little bit of the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top of that, and then a wee bit of the wheaty bitiness at the top. And so the base of that back third of your palate, you have the brown bready bread crusty character in the base again. Then above that you've got a wee bit of cracker. You can feel the wholemeal brown bready layer in there, which was a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. Then above that you've got the white bready layer, which is a little bit taller, lighter and more airy as well. And they do have a little bit more dryness to them on the back third of the palate too. But then above all of that you can feel the wheaty character just creeping over the top of that, and that's quite nice. So yeah, the wheaty character on the back third of the palate definitely has a wee bit more kind of bite to it as well. But yeah, on top of all of that, you have the kind of yeasty side of the beer as well. So for me, the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting. It's got a little bit a more kind of dry, grainy brown bread at its core, and then as you move out from that, it's got a wee bit more of like a crackery dryness almost, and then the very edge of it is like sort of toasty bread crust or something like that. So the yeasty side of this one is quite different actually, and it gives you a little bit of dryness and toastiness into the aftertaste. So yeah, the way that that pieces together I think is very, very nice in this one, so gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, interesting malty and yeasty character in this one. As I say, the lightness of the malt base in this beer is kind of what gets me a little bit, especially when it's you know, nearly 9% ABV, and that's probably why it's a bit sweeter as well, as to cover the alcohol. But it could just be a completely different approach they've taken to making the recipe as well. So yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward, it squashes together that little bit more. But let's go on to the green component of this one then. So green component of this beer is quite smooth, generally speaking, but in the back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, and as you push further forward toward the front corners of your palate, it's got that little bit more kind of floral aromaticity coming out of it, and round the front curve of the tongue, it's that little bit lighter and more grassy as well. So yeah, the grassiness in this beer does have a little bit of zestiness to it, but overall I'd say that green component is quite smooth and quite oily in a sense. So yeah, I like that about this one. Yeah, I do like how that the green component complements this one, because you do get quite a bit of citrusy, zesty character out of this beer into the aftertaste, and yeah, you get more and more of that floral note lingering with this one too. But let's round off the tasting then with a look at that front third of your palate. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the base is the brown bread, you've got the white bread above that and a wee touch of the wheat there. But yeah, the base of the front third of your palate is the bread crust again. The brown bread kind of sits on top of that. It's a wee bit sweeter, of course, than the white bread, and then you've got the kind of more dense wheaty character in there as well. And above that, the wheat actually does have a little bit of bite on the front third of your palate too, which is kind of interesting. Wasn't expecting that. But then above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So for me, the fruity side of things in this beer is pretty damn orangey. It's quite straightforward in terms of its fruity character. So if you go to the back of that front third of your palate then to start off, yeah, there's a very slight peach on the impact when you take the beer in, but then yeah, when you move further forward with it, it's passion fruit and maybe a little touch of apricot or something underneath. But yeah, a little bit of peach on the impact, lots of juicy passion fruit, and then a wee soft apricot in there. Simcoe is going to give you that all day long, but as you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, it's all about the Amarillo and the Mosaic for sure. So yeah, you can feel the more oily, zesty Amarillo just taking up the base of that that front half of the front third of your tongue. So yeah, big oily Amarillo characters in this one, and then yeah, you've got some nice yeah, you do have quite a nice juicy tangerine note sitting above that in this beer, which goes together really, really nicely. So the orangey characters in this one kind of dominate, and you get those straight away, and that actually blends very well with the slightly sweeter malty character that this beer has. So yeah, I think that's everything we can really say about the flavour of this one. The fruity side of this beer is pretty straightforward actually. But yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. And for me, as I say, that's where this beer kind of differentiates itself from other hazies we've had. So yeah, like I said, the thing that surprised me about this beer was kind of how light it was in its mouthfeel and the sort of oily, slick nature of the beer. So yeah, for me, this one, it's I'd say it's mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum. The carbonation is quite smooth. As I said, it's got this oily, slick kind of nature to it. The malt base, as we said, has a wee bit of dryness underneath. There's smoothness in the middle, and then there's this kind of like almost, is it right to call it silky? That kind of silky, smooth sweetness sitting on top of it. Your IBU count in this one, what's it going to be? A little bit hard to place. In all honesty, I would say the IBU count in this beer is maybe about 40-ish. It does give you a little bit of a lingering bitterness into the aftertaste, but it could be even less than that. So yeah, about 40-ish IBUs, you do feel a little bit of spiciness out of it. And then yeah, the fruity side of this one, soft and tropical in a sense, but then yeah, you've got the more oily, orangey characteristics coming out of it as well. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this one is really nice. I've really enjoyed this beer, so a big thank you to Akil for recommending this one to me, and it does make me curious to try some of their other different kinds of IPAs as well, because I think both of them have been sort of hazy leaning that we've had thus far. So a West Coast or the Brute or the Black IPA I think has to be the next one that we have a look at, or a completely different style actually would be good as well. But yeah, really impressed with this one. This was the Naughty Juice, an 8.9% ABV hazy double IPA, quite interesting, completely different from a lot of the other ones that I've had over the last week. If you like an orangey leaning and sort of sweeter New England IPA, I think this one is going to be right up your street. But just be aware it's very light in its mouthfeel, very kind of slick too. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Double Vision Brewing Company. Brain is still tired. These guys are from Wellington in New Zealand. Great brewery, and definitely one that I will be returning to again. But in the meantime, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.